I'm going to continue this 1-point exterior or city scene by adding in sidewalk on each side of my road and little dash line in the middle that divides the two lanes where traffic would travel down. So I already have my buildings done on at least the main shape of the buildings done on the left-hand side and the right-hand side. We'll add windows and doors to those next, but we're gonna do our street first. So I'm gonna start by making the sidewalk on the left-hand side. So I'm gonna give myself some space from the ends of this building. So I'm not lined up with the ends of the building. I'm coming over a bit, giving myself some space where my eventual characters, if I were to draw this out more, would walk down the sidewalk. So I've come over from that, but my ruler is lined up still with my vanishing point in the center. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a line again, lined up with that vanishing point in the center. I'm not gonna touch that line, so I'm coming back a little bit from that. And I'm gonna draw a line, again, using my ruler lined up with my vanishing point in the center, down until it's about an inch, half an inch or so from the bottom of my page. So I did that for the left-hand side. I'm gonna do the same thing for the right-hand side. So all I did again was line my ruler up with my vanishing point in the center. So I can leave this edge of my ruler lined up and I can pivot to the other end of the edge of my ruler to give myself some space. So I don't want it to be right flush with the bottom of those buildings. I want to come back a little bit, giving my characters some space for the sidewalk, but always making sure that my ruler lines up with that vanishing point in the center. So it lines up with that all the time. And then again, I'm going to draw a line that doesn't touch my horizon line. Using my ruler, it lines up with that vanishing point in the center. And it goes down, but doesn't touch the bottom of my paper either. Comes about a ½ inch shy of that from on each side. So this again is the sidewalk going back in virtual or 3D space. To finish out the top part here, I'm going to do a horizontal straight across that's parallel with my horizon line. And it's gonna start at the edge of my third building on the left side, and it's gonna go across until it hits the edge of my third building on the right-hand side. And I can extend these lines back a little bit with my ruler until they hit that line, since I drew them a little bit short. But it's going back in virtual space that way. To end the bottom of these sidewalks, I do the same thing. So I'm going to have my ruler, again, at the bottom. It's going to be parallel with the horizon line. And it's going to start on one side, so where the sidewalk line came down on the left, where that is at the bottom here. I'm going to draw a line with my ruler over towards the edge of my paper on the left, and I'm going to do the same thing on the right. So we have the sidewalk there. Now the sidewalk is raised up from the road. It's not level with the road. We have a curb and then the sidewalk. So we're going to add the curb. So on the left-hand side here, where that straight horizontal met my converging line going back, that point here, I'm going to do a small little vertical that goes straight down. Again, verticals stay straight up and down, so they should be parallel to the edge of your paper. Do the same thing on the right side. So where that horizontal met my converging line going back on the right here, I'm going to do a vertical again, straight down, just a little vertical. That's going to be the curb or the thickness of the sidewalk that's raised up from the road. Now, just like I did to end this side of my sidewalk on the side that's facing me, I did straight horizontals. I'm going to do the same thing at the bottom. So where that vertical is, bottom of that vertical that I just made for each side, I'm keeping my ruler lined up parallel with my horizon line. And I'm going to do the same thing. So where that vertical is at the bottom there, I'm going to do a horizontal that goes straight across to the edge of my picture, or edge of my paper here on the left-hand side. Do the same thing horizontal straight across until it meets the edge of my paper on the right-hand side. So now I need this sidewalk to converge back. So where this vertical met that horizontal, that bottom point right here, again, this is just one big, long, skinny box that my other boxes on this side are sitting on top of. So where that vertical met that horizontal, that point right here, I'm gonna line that up with my vanishing point in the center, and I'm gonna draw back until those two lines look like they're converging or meeting. Same thing for the bottom on the right-hand side. So where that vertical met the horizontal going across, that point at the bottom, I'm gonna line that up with my vanishing point again in the center of my paper, and I'm going to draw back until those lines appear like they're converging. I can finish that out with a little vertical at the end, right before it meets that horizontal straight across there. So that's my sidewalk on each side. But now my sidewalk is not one solid shape. It has little square portions that divide it up. And to make that, we're going to use horizontal straight across, but they're going to get closer and closer together as they go back towards the vanishing point. And that's because of something called atmospheric perspective. So if there's something that's really, really close to you, like my hand, it's going to appear bigger than if it's farther away. It looks like it is smaller. So the same thing happens, even though it's evenly spaced. Look, so you could go and measure each sidewalk on a real road, each square of the sidewalk. They're going to be exactly the same measurements. But in order for us to make it look like it's going back in space, we're going to shorten the distance between each one each time. That way it looks like it's going back in 3D space. So I'm going to have my ruler be horizontal, straight across, and I'm going to move it up a little bit from the edge of my sidewalk. And I'm going to do a horizontal that starts at the edge of my first building and goes over until it meets the edge of my sidewalk. Not over to the curb, but over to the edge of the curb. So where the curb started, my sidewalk ended, over to the sides of my building. So I did that for both sides of my sidewalk on my street here. Now when I do the next one, I'm gonna leave not as much space. So this is that wide. My next one's gonna be a little bit skinnier. So to see that, I'm gonna have my ruler be on the top side, and I wanna just kind of eyeball it. So I'm not doing that much space. I'm coming down from that a little bit. So it's a little less space. But again, my ruler should be parallel to my horizon line. So I'm keeping it straight across. If I have these start to bend down, if they were to angle down like that, then it's gonna look like this is a hill or a ramp and not straight across. So again, it's very important that these lines of my sidewalk stay parallel to my horizon line or straight horizontals. So again, I'm gonna do it again, but this time less space between. So each one is getting less space between them. And that's what's gonna make it look like it's going back in 3D space. Or, again, technical term is atmospheric perspective. So things that are closer to me are larger, more space between them. Things that are farther away have less space. And I'm gonna continue to do that, leaving less and less space between these straight horizontals that I'm making on each side of my road as it goes back towards my vanishing point. Each one's getting smaller and smaller and smaller, or less distance between each of these spaces. And I'm going to continue this out until it goes all the way back towards my vanishing point. Each one again getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and that's going to make it look like it's going back in distance. So these last ones here, I'm just going to eyeball. Just like that. So that goes back in 3D space. So each one has less space between it, and that's what makes it look like it's going back. Again, that's called atmospheric perspective. Last thing I'm going to do for my road here is I'm going to do a dotted line that goes down kind of the center of my road here that divides one lane of traffic from the other lane of traffic. So I'm not going to have it come straight down because my road is a little bit off kilter. But again, just like I did for my sidewalks, I had my ruler lined up with my vanishing point in the center. So I'm going to leave a little bit of space. So I try to have about equal amounts of space on each side of my road. And I'm going to do a dashed line. The dashes, or the short little segments of line, are going to be closer together and shorter as they approach my vanishing point or get close to my vanishing point. There's going to be more space between them, and they're going to get a little bit longer as they near the bottom of my page, or closer to me as the viewer. So more space between them, and they get a little bit longer. So here, when they're closer to the vanishing point, they're very short, and there's less space between them, between each one of them. As they approach the bottom of the page, or me as the viewer here, there is more space between them and they get longer. And again, that is because of atmospheric perspective.